The Intergalactic Aviation Academy orbited a white star, its colossal structure stretching across thousands of kilometers. To most civilizations, it was a symbol of prestige. To pilots, it was the ultimate proving ground. Every cycle, the best young aviators from across known space arrived to compete, not in war, but in controlled trials. Precision flying, tactical simulations, elite rankings that determined which species truly mastered the skies. This year, a new species had been invited: humanity. Dozens of alien cadets stood along the panoramic observation deck as the final arrivals entered the docking zone. Sleek craft slid through vacuum with flawless symmetry. Living ships, crystal hulls, gravitational gliders. Then the human fighter appeared. It didn't glide. It punched into the system on a column of raw engine fire, heat signatures spiking so aggressively that several sensor officers thought something was wrong. Unstable drive output detected, one technician muttered. Another checked again. Negative. That is normal output. The matte gray craft cut, thrust hard, and drifted the final distance into the docking ring with sharp, deliberate control, like a predator slowing just before landing. Its hull wasn't smooth, it was scarred. Not ceremonial markings, not decorative etching, real damage, repaired and flown again. The hangar fell quieter as the cockpit opened. Captain Elena Viper Hayes stepped out onto the deck. United States Air Force, test pilot, combat veteran. She removed her helmet, dark hair pulled tight, expression calm and unreadable. Her eyes moved across the massive hangar, cataloging exits, sightlines, personnel, a habit she no longer noticed. Most Academy cadets arrived excited. Elena arrived aware. A tall instructor descended from an upper platform, wings folding neatly behind his back. An avian species known for precision flight and strict discipline. "Captain Hayes," he said, "you are the designated human representative." "Yes, sir." His gaze shifted briefly to the fighter behind her. "That vessel shows signs of repeated atmospheric and combat stress." Elena glanced back at it. "Yeah," she said simply, "it's been used." Several nearby cadets exchanged subtle looks. Used? Most Academy craft were purpose-built for competition and training, perfectly maintained, perfectly safe. This human had arrived in something that looked like it had survived battles. The instructor continued, "You should be aware, this academy conducts competitive evaluation only. No live warfare, no lethal engagement." Elena met his gaze. "Understood." A small pause. Then she added, almost casually, "Still flying, though?" The instructor studied her for a moment longer than protocol required. Across the hangar, other cadets began quiet analysis. Some accessed public human data streams. Others scanned her service record now uploaded to Academy systems. A few seconds later, whispers spread. "She has real combat hours, multiple atmospheric engagements, missile evasion under live fire." One cadet spoke softly. "Why send a war pilot to a school competition?" No one had an answer. Elena picked up her flight bag and started toward the pilot briefing corridor. No escort needed. She walked like someone used to moving through secure bases and forward operating zones. Not like a student. Like someone who had already graduated from worse places. Behind her, a group of cadets watched the human fighter being secured in the hangar cradle. Its surface bore heat, scoring from re-entry. Micro-fractures from near-miss impacts. Replacement panels of slightly different shades. Quick repairs done to keep it operational. One observer finally said what many were thinking. "That is not a training aircraft." Another replied quietly, "No, it isn't." As Elena reached the briefing chamber doors, they slid open to reveal rows of elite cadets from across the galaxy, the best young pilots their worlds could produce. Conversations faded as she entered. Dozens of eyes turned toward the human, some curious, some amused, some dismissive. Elena took an empty seat near the center, set her helmet on the table, and waited. A massive holographic display ignited above the room. Intergalactic Aviation Academy. Competitive trials beginning. A voice echoed through the chamber. "Welcome, cadets. Over the next 5 cycles, you will compete to determine the highest-ranked pilot of this academy." Names and species flashed across the display. Then, Hayes, Elena. Earth. Combat status. Active veteran. A small detail, but it changed the room. Several cadets straightened. One leaned toward another and whispered, "She's not here to learn." The response came back just as quietly. "No, she's here because she already has." At the front of the chamber, the lead command instructor stepped forward. "First trial begins in 3 hours," he announced. "Basic evaluation, speed, control, and reaction." He paused briefly, then added, "Some of you will be flying for pride, some for ranking, some for future command." His gaze moved across the room and stopped, just for a second, on the human pilot. "And some," he said slowly, "will be flying by instinct." Elena leaned back in her seat, calm, steady, heart already settling into the familiar rhythm that came before every flight. Competition or not, the sky was still the sky, and she had never entered it halfway. The launch chamber stretched for kilometers, a hollow ring open to space. Dozens of fighters rested in individual cradles along the inner structure, each one different. Some were grown rather than built. Others pulsed faintly with internal energy cores. A few hovered silently, never fully touching the deck, and one sat heavy on reinforced clamps. The human aircraft. Elena walked toward it in full flight gear, helmet under one arm, movement steady and unhurried. Around her, alien cadets performed final diagnostics with assistance from hovering drones and neural-linked interfaces. Most of them didn't touch their ships. They didn't need to. Elena ran her hand along the side of her fighter as she approached. A quick physical inspection out of habit. Fingers brushing over seams, panel locks, the edge of a patched section near the wing root. Ground crew from the academy watched curiously. "You still perform manual checks?" one technician asked. She climbed the ladder halfway, then paused. "Always." The technician tilted his head. "Your onboard systems already completed diagnostics." Elena gave a small shrug. "Systems fail." Then she finished climbing into the cockpit. Inside, the space was compact and utilitarian. No organic interface, no neural gel. Just switches, screens, worn controls shaped by use rather than design perfection. She strapped in. Power flowed through the craft with a familiar vibration, not silent, not elegant, mechanical, real. Around the launch ring, other fighters began activating. Some emitted harmonic tones as their engines synchronized. Others phased partially out of visible spectrum. A voice filled the chamber. "First trial, reaction and control evaluation, multi-stage obstacle course, no weapons permitted, no external assistance, rankings determined by completion time and maneuver precision." A holographic map appeared in every cockpit, a twisting course through open vacuum, dense asteroid clusters, rotating structures, and gravity distortion pockets. Dynamic, unpredictable. Elena studied it once, then closed the map. Pilot Hayes. An observer's voice came over a monitoring channel. "Do you require course overlay assistance?" "No," she replied. A short pause. Confirmed. Launch clamps released across the ring one by one. Sleek alien fighters shot forward with perfect timing, gliding into the open void like arrows. Elena waited, not for technical reasons, for rhythm. 3 launches, 4. Then she engaged thrust. Her fighter didn't glide out of the ring. It surged. Engines roared to life with controlled aggression, pushing her forward harder than most Academy craft considered comfortable. Acceleration pressed her into the seat as she cleared the launch boundary and entered the first section of the course. Human craft exceeding standard acceleration curves, one observer noted. Another responded quietly. She is not exceeding them. She is ignoring them. Ahead, the first obstacle field shifted, a dense cluster of floating metallic rings rotating at different speeds. Most pilots approached with cautious precision, letting onboard AI calculate perfect paths. Elena kept manual control. Her hands moved lightly on the controls, almost relaxed. Small adjustments, tiny corrections. The fighter responded instantly, cutting between spinning rings with centimeters to spare. Inside the observation chamber, instructors watched her telemetry spike and dip unpredictably. "She is not flying optimal lines," one said. "No," another replied. "She is flying survivable ones." A sudden gravity distortion rippled across the course, unannounced. Ships ahead of her slowed as their systems recalculated safe vectors. Elena accelerated. Her fighter dropped into the distortion well, momentum slingshotting her forward at an angle that looked almost reckless. Warning signals flashed across her console. She ignored them. The distortion spat her out directly ahead of 2 competitors who had chosen safer routes. For a moment, she led. Murmurs spread through the observation deck. How did she predict that distortion timing? She didn't. The realization settled slowly. She gambled. Inside the cockpit, Elena's breathing stayed slow and steady. Not a gamble, a read. Asteroid density ahead shifted suddenly, a moving cluster closing into a narrow corridor. 1 alien pilot aborted and rerouted automatically. Elena didn't. She rolled the fighter 90 degrees, cut thrust for half a second, then punched it again, slipping through the collapsing gap just as 2 massive rocks slammed together behind her. Silence hit the observation chamber. That gap was below regulation minimum. She entered it anyway. Why? No one answered immediately. On screen, the human fighter emerged from the asteroid cluster alone and accelerating. One instructor finally spoke, "Because she has flown through worse." The final stretch opened into a straight acceleration lane surrounded by moving marker drones. Most cadets stabilized their craft and let guidance systems maximize efficiency. Elena pushed manual thrust. Her fighter vibrated under the strain as she squeezed every possible unit of speed from it. Not perfectly smooth, not elegant, aggressive. She crossed the finish boundary first, not by a massive margin, but clearly. Her time locked onto the ranking board at the top. 1. Hayes, Elena, Earth. The chamber stayed quiet for several seconds. Then one of the senior instructors spoke softly. "She does not fly like a student?" Another replied, "No, she flies like someone who expects to be shot at." Back in her cockpit, Elena reduced power and guided the fighter into a slow return arc, toward the academy ring. Her pulse remained steady, almost calm. Just another course, just another sky. But as she approached the docking zone, she noticed something new. Every returning pilot was watching her, not with amusement anymore, with focus. By the second cycle, no one in the academy considered the human pilot a curiosity. She was now a variable, and variables had to be managed. The combat simulation chamber spanned an entire internal sphere of the station, a fully immersive tactical environment where pilots fought using real maneuvering and simulated weapons. Damage registered, systems failed, eliminations were absolute, but no one died. That was the Academy's promise. 5 pilots per match, 1 winner. Elena stood beside her fighter as the next roster appeared across the massive briefing display. Simulation Group 7, Neural-Linked Ace, Machine Civilization, Twin Pilot Hive Species, Shared Cognition, Royal Military Cadet, Cathari Empire, Stealth Specialist, Vane Collective, Haze, Elena, Earth. A low murmur spread through the chamber. One of the instructors spoke quietly to another. "That is not a random grouping." "No," the second replied. "It is an evaluation." Across the bay, the other 4 pilots studied the same roster. The machine pilot processed data instantly, calculating probabilities. The Hive pair exchanged silent neural pulses. The Royal Cadet simply watched Elena with open interest. Only the Stealth Specialist reacted verbally. "Human!" came a voice over short-range comms. Smooth, emotionless. "Your previous performance suggests unpredictable maneuver patterns." Elena sealed her helmet. "Yeah." A pause. "You will be eliminated first," the voice continued calmly. "This increases survival probability for all remaining pilots." Elena climbed into her cockpit. "Then move fast." Inside the simulation sphere, the environment formed instantly around them. A shattered orbital battlefield filled with debris, drifting wreckage and broken station fragments. Dim light from a distant star flickered through clouds of metallic dust. Perfect for ambushes. Perfect for alliances. 5 fighters spawned at separate points along the battlefield perimeter. Elena checked her systems. Simulated weapons. Active. Shields. Balanced. Engines. Responsive. No autopilot engaged. A countdown appeared across her HUD. 3, 2, 1. The battlefield came alive. Within seconds, her sensors lit with activity. 3 ships converging. The machine pilot, the Hive pair, the Royal Cadet. A temporary alliance, fast, efficient, logical. Remove the unpredictable human first, stabilize the match afterward. Elena exhaled slowly. Of course. Missile locks pinged across her console. She didn't accelerate. She cut thrust completely. Her fighter went dark and silent, drifting into the shadow of a fractured cruiser hull just as the first volley streaked past her last known trajectory. Explosions lit the debris field. "She vanished?" one observer whispered. Inside the simulation, the Alliance pilots recalculated instantly, spreading formation and scanning. Elena floated motionless behind wreckage, heat signature minimized, systems running on bare minimum output. Waiting. The machine pilot passed first, scanning wide, precise. The Hive pair moved together, covering angles. The Royal Cadet held distance, watching for movement. Elena's eyes tracked them all. 3 threats, 1 moment. She reignited engines for exactly 2 seconds. Her fighter shot out from behind cover at close range, far closer than any predictive model had anticipated. Target lock, tone, 2 missiles launched before the machine pilot could fully reorient. Direct hits. The most advanced ship in the match dissolved into simulated debris. Shock rippled through the remaining pilots. "Elimination confirmed," the system announced. Elena didn't celebrate. She dove straight through the expanding debris cloud, using it as visual cover. The hive pair reacted fast, splitting for a pincer maneuver, shared cognition, allowing near-perfect coordination. Near-perfect. Elena broke hard left, then instantly reversed thrust and rolled beneath the lead hive craft, passing so close that collision alarms screamed in both cockpits. At that distance, no complex targeting needed. Short burst. One hive ship flashed red and disintegrated. The second hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. Not confusion. Loss. The shared mind suddenly incomplete. That fraction was enough. Elena looped behind and fired again. Double elimination. The observation chamber erupted in overlapping voices. She entered close quarters range deliberately. That distance was suicidal. No, a senior instructor said quietly. It was decisive. Inside the battlefield, only 2 ships remained. The Royal Cadet hovered at distance now, no longer amused, no longer confident. "You fight like this is real combat," he transmitted. Elena's voice came back calm and steady. "Always do." He activated full weapons spread and charged, a frontal assault, honor-driven, direct. Elena met it head-on. Missiles crossed between them. Countermeasures flared. Both ships took simulated damage, shields draining rapidly as they closed distance at lethal speed. At the last possible second, Elena cut engines and dropped below his firing line, sliding under his craft with barely meters to spare. He tried to track. Too late. Her fighter rose behind him, weapons already locked. One clean shot. The royal ship froze, then dissolved into simulation fragments. Silence filled the battlefield. Match, complete winner. Hayes, Elena. Earth, in the observation chamber, no one spoke for several seconds. Then one instructor said quietly, "She allowed them to form an alliance." Another nodded. "Yes." "Why?" The answer came from the oldest flight commander present, watching Elena's fighter drift alone in the simulation void. "Because," he said, "it let her hunt them together." By the 4th cycle, the Academy stopped treating the human pilot like a participant. She had become the benchmark. Cadets began adjusting their strategies around her presence. Instructors revised evaluation models. Simulation analysts rewrote predictive algorithms that had failed to account for a pilot who flew by instinct instead of optimization. And still, one trial remained. The final. A full-spectrum flight gauntlet designed to test everything at once: endurance, combat awareness, navigation, and psychological stability under pressure. Only 3 pilots qualified. The machine civilization had sent a replacement candidate, faster, more advanced than the first. The Cathari Empire's royal ace returned through the repechage bracket, and the human. The briefing chamber lights dimmed as the final course materialized in the center of the room. A living nebula, not a static simulation, a dynamically shifting electromagnetic storm filled with gravity tides, sensor interference, autonomous drone threats, and spatial distortions that changed without warning. Even experienced instructors rarely flew it. "This environment cannot be memorized," the lead commander said. "It cannot be predicted. You will adapt or you will fail." A pause. No alliances, no external guidance. One pilot exits first. That pilot ranks highest. Elena studied the rotating storm projection. Beautiful, violent, unstable, perfect. To her right, the machine pilot stood motionless, data streams clearly flowing through its neural lattice. Calculations already underway, probabilities forming. To her left, the Royal Ace watched the storm with narrowed eyes, wings slightly flexed, a warrior preparing for a duel rather than a race. He glanced at Elena. "You continue to surprise this academy, human," he said evenly. "Tell me, why pursue victory so aggressively? This is only training." Elena lifted her helmet. "Where I trained," she replied, "if you treat something like practice, you die when it isn't." The chamber fell quiet. Launch clearance came minutes later. The nebula swallowed light. Electric storms flashed across dense clouds of charged particles as the three fighters entered the boundary. Sensors degraded instantly, replaced by partial readings and distorted returns. The machine pilot surged ahead first. Engines perfectly tuned, trajectory optimized in real time through predictive modeling. It sliced through the storm with mathematical precision. The Royal Ace followed with disciplined control, maintaining balanced energy distribution and defensive readiness. Elena entered last, not rushing, reading. The first gravity tide hit without warning, a sideways pull that twisted space itself. The machine pilot adjusted instantly but lost fractional speed recalibrating. The Royal Ace compensated smoothly. Elena dove directly into the shifting current. Her fighter rolled with the distortion rather than resisting it, letting the gravitational pull slingshot her forward along an unstable vector that no standard navigation model would recommend. Inside the observation chamber, telemetry spiked. "She is allowing the environment to throw her," one analyst said. "Yes," another replied quietly, "and she knows where she will land." A swarm of autonomous drones activated deeper in the storm. Defensive constructs designed to intercept and harass all pilots equally. Dozens launched at once, locking onto the nearest targets. The machine pilot deployed counter-drone algorithms, firing precise bursts that eliminated threats efficiently. The Royal Ace engaged in direct combat, destroying drones with controlled volleys. Elena did neither. She accelerated straight toward the densest drone cluster. "What is she doing?" someone whispered. At the last second, she cut sharply through the center of the swarm, forcing the drones to recalculate pursuit vectors. Their targeting systems overlapped and conflicted as they attempted to track her rapid directional shifts. Within seconds, half of them began chasing the machine pilot instead. The rest redirected toward the Royal Ace. Elena exited the swarm untouched. A senior instructor exhaled slowly. She weaponized their targeting logic. Deeper in the nebula, electromagnetic lightning began arcing unpredictably between charged clouds. Visibility dropped near zero. Sensor readings became unreliable. The machine pilot slowed slightly, not from fear, but from calculation limits. Too many variables, too many unknowns. The Royal Ace pressed forward, but took a glancing strike across his shields, draining energy reserves. Elena pushed harder. Her fighter rattled as turbulence hammered the hull. Warning icons stacked across her console, shield stress, heat buildup, navigation uncertainty. She flew through it anyway, because to her this wasn't unfamiliar. Storms, jammed sensors, incomplete data. Real combat rarely offered clarity. The final stretch appeared suddenly, a narrow exit corridor forming and collapsing in irregular pulses at the nebula's far edge. The machine pilot reached it first and began calculating optimal timing. The Royal Ace closed in seconds later, preparing a high-speed precision run. Elena didn't slow. She accelerated. "That window is unstable," an observer said sharply. "If she enters at the wrong—" Her fighter plunged into the collapsing corridor before the sentence finished. Space twisted, light fractured. For a moment, telemetry vanished completely. Then, a single craft burst out of the nebula's far side into clear starlight. Scarred, shaking, still under full control. "Hayes, Elena!" Exit confirmed. Inside the storm behind her, two other signals struggled to realign with the shifting corridor. Elena crossed the final boundary first, engines still burning, flight path still steady. In the observation chamber, no one spoke, not out of doubt, out of realization. One instructor finally said very quietly, "She does not wait for safe paths." Another answered, "No, she makes them." The grand chamber of the Intergalactic Aviation Academy had never been this silent. Thousands of cadets filled the tiered levels, pilots from worlds where flight was art, science, and sacred tradition. Instructors stood along the upper platforms, their expressions controlled, but tense. At the center of the chamber, 3 fighters rested on display platforms. 2 pristine, untouched, one scorched and scarred from the final trial, the human craft. Elena stood beside it in full uniform, helmet tucked under her arm. No victory pose, no visible pride, just the same calm awareness she carried everywhere. Above the chamber floor, the final rankings ignited across a massive holographic display. Intergalactic Aviation Academy. Final standings. 3. Cathari Empire 2, Machine Coalition 1, Earth. Captain Elena Hayes. A quiet wave moved through the audience. Not shock anymore. Recognition. The lead command instructor stepped forward to the central platform. His voice carried easily through the vast space. "Cadets of the Academy," he began, "this cycle concludes with a result unprecedented in our history." He turned slightly toward Elena. "A species newly entered into interstellar aviation training has achieved highest ranking in its first full competitive evaluation." A pause. "Not through superior technology, not through neural enhancement, not through numerical advantage." His gaze moved across the assembled pilots, "but through something we did not fully account for." He gestured once toward the human fighter. "Experience under real threat." A secondary display activated, compiled telemetry from all 5 trials. Comparative data between the 3 finalists filled the air. Reaction speeds, efficiency curves, tactical decisions. The machine pilot showed perfect optimization. The Royal Ace displayed disciplined precision. The human data looked different. Irregular thrust patterns, manual overrides, risk spikes followed by immediate stabilization. One instructor addressed the chamber. "Captain Hayes demonstrates a consistent pattern. She does not fly for maximum score. She flies for maximum survival probability under worst-case conditions." Another added quietly, "Even when those conditions do not exist." The Royal Ace stepped forward from the finalist line. He faced Elena directly, wings folding behind his back in formal acknowledgement. "In my culture," he said clearly, "victory in the sky earns lifelong respect. You have that respect, human pilot." Elena gave a small nod. "Appreciate it." The machine pilot followed, mechanical voice steady. "Your flight patterns remain statistically inefficient, yet consistently successful. We request access to human combat training archives." A faint smile touched Elena's mouth. "Those aren't light reading." Soft laughter moved through parts of the chamber. the first release of tension in days. The lead instructor raised one hand, restoring order. "There is one final matter." He faced the audience fully. "For decades, this academy has evaluated pilots based on control, speed, and tactical optimization within safe parameters." A slight shift in tone. Human performance has revealed a flaw in that model. Another display ignited, side-by-side comparisons between academy-trained pilots and human combat flight records from Earth. Real engagements, real evasions, real losses and survivals. No one spoke. "We have trained for excellence," the instructor continued. "They have trained for survival." His gaze moved back to Elena. "Captain Hayes, why do human pilots maintain combat-level aggression even in controlled environments?" The question hung in the vast chamber. Elena considered it for a moment. Then she stepped forward, setting her helmet on the platform beside her fighter. "Because where we come from," she said calmly, "the sky has never been safe." Silence deepened. She looked out across the thousands of cadets watching. "Every pilot on Earth trains knowing something might go wrong. Systems fail, weather shifts, people shoot at you. If you treat flying like a game—" She gave a small shrug. "You don't last long." Her hand rested briefly against the side of her aircraft. Worn metal, patched plating, heat-scarred from dozens of real missions. "We don't fly to win trophies," she finished quietly. "We fly to come home." No dramatic emphasis, just truth. The lead instructor straightened. "Effective immediately," he announced, voice echoing across the chamber. "Academy training doctrine will be updated." A new directive appeared in blazing white text above them all. Human Combat Flight Doctrine. Mandatory study for all advanced cadets. A ripple of reaction moved through the crowd. Not resistance, respect. As the assembly concluded, cadets began clearing the chamber in orderly silence. Many slowed as they passed the central platform. Some glanced at the human fighter, others at the pilot standing beside it. Not curiosity anymore. Recognition. The Royal Ace paused briefly as he passed Elena. "Will you return next cycle to instruct?" he asked. Elena picked up her helmet. "Maybe," she said, "if command sends me." "And if they do not?" She smirked slightly. "Then I'll be somewhere else flying something that shoots back." He gave a short, approving nod and continued on. Moments later, Elena walked alone across the hangar deck toward her fighter. Ground crews had already completed post-trial checks. Fuel topped, systems green, ready, always ready. She climbed into the cockpit and powered up. The familiar vibration settled through the frame as engines came alive. Not smooth, not silent, real. Launch clearance came quickly. As her fighter lifted from the Academy ring and turned toward open space, dozens of observation windows across the station filled with watching silhouettes. Pilots from 100 worlds, all watching the same thing. The human craft didn't glide away gracefully. It accelerated hard, engines burning bright as it cut a direct line into the stars, fast, aggressive, unapologetically human. Inside the cockpit, Elena steadied the controls and set a course for home. Competition finished, mission complete. But for pilots like her, the sky was never just a place to win, it was always a place to survive.